Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome live to Croke Park Studios for the latest episode of The View, brought to you, as always, by our friends at Allianz. Today, we're going to be looking back at all the weekend's Allianz Hurling League action from round 3, and we have some special guests, as always, joining us. We'll be getting the Tipperary view from Eoin Kelly, a little bit disappointed after their 100% record came to an end at the hands of Cork on Saturday night. And joining us in studio today, making his debut, it's former Kilkenny star and 5-time Allianz Hurling League winner, Walter Walsh. And as always, we have Waterford's Noel Connors is back. Very happy, buoyant Noel Connors after the Dacia got their second win in a row at the weekend just yesterday against Offaly lads. So lots to get through as always today. Thanks for joining us if you're on your lunch break or your school break. Lads, no football action this weekend. The inter-county footballers across the country had a well-earned rest and recuperation. But there was American football on last night, one of the biggest sporting events in the world every year. Are we American football fans? Anyone?
No.
No, not at all. We weren't staying up, myself and Noel were talking about it. We weren't staying up late last night watching it. But we know the Seahawks won anyway. That's a
start. That's a start. I'd say there's a few bleary-eyed watchers here now staying up till 4 a.m. to watch the Seahawks win, but not a fan of it, no. But in terms of the spectacle, lads, I know obviously the NFL was here last autumn, an unbelievable week of events and everything that goes with American sports. Is there anything, is there demand for from Irish sports fans, you think?
It's probably a very different product in the sense that our games are probably a bit traditional, not in like the way in which they're played, but we're more about the game themselves, where I think the American like to glamorise things and commercialise things slightly different. So, like Walter said, I wasn't staying up that late. I'm a 9:30 fella in bed, thank God.
You look very fresh.
Yeah,
look very fresh.
Yeah, thanks, Paddy.
Wouldn't mind a bit of tailgating though, Paddy, if they brought that into the GA thing.
Right.
Make more of a festival around All Ireland weekend. That could be something the GA could look at. You can see I've been to a few American football games and
so you're a bit of a fan.
That was the most enjoyable part of the day as well. So look, something like that could be good.
What were you doing, Wally?
Just there mixing with the American people, and they sit up, barbecues and different things like that. Real enjoyable. You should experience it, Noel.
It's a full day out, isn't it?
I think he's acting on a date already, Paddy.
He loves it until the match started, and then he was like, right, I'm grand, I'm going to go back out and tailgate some more. Like I said, there was no football action at the weekend, so it was looking across all 4 divisions. We had a replay of last year's All-Ireland Hurling final down the Park on Saturday night, and the other marquee game from the weekend. 2 perennial contenders got in each other's faces down in the Gaelic grounds in Limerick yesterday, with John Kiley's men coming out on top. There's the results for everyone. A comfortable win for Ben O'Connor's men over Tipperary. They're 3 for 3. Waterford, as mentioned, they picked up a win against Offaly in Walsh Park. And as mentioned, the big game yesterday afternoon, John Kiley's men, he asked for a response after their defeat last week to Waterford, and he got it with a relatively comfortable win over Kilkenny. So joining us to discuss all of that, we will have Tipperary's Eoin Kelly. Eoin, how's the form? Thanks for joining us today.
Paddy, how are you?
All good, all good. So, listen, we'll start with probably the biggest game of the weekend, or a rematch of last year's All-Ireland final. Probably didn't really match the heights of that. Ben O'Connor obviously had some strong words, as always, after the game. But, Walter, it did get a bit feisty before half-time. That was probably the big talking point.
Yeah, it did, and it went on for over 5.5 minutes. And, look, there was nothing too bad about it, really, in reality. And it seems like the ref just felt like he had to send 2 players off, and I suppose it kind of ruined the game. If you think about it, in the second half, then there were sweepers on both sides. Then as a result, look, there was nothing too malicious there, and it just went on for so long. There had to be some sort of repercussions.
It's probably more the visual thing, Paddy.
Yeah.
In the sense that the GA are very much trying to promote the game and traditions, and when this goes on for an extended period, the referee probably has no choice. Now, Ben O'Connor had, as you said, strong words, and I absolutely get his point in the sense that nobody got hurt or injured. It was fellas coming together that are obviously very passionate, high-performing athletes, and they want to do as best as possible. So there's probably arguments on both sides, but it's probably not a great thing to see at this time of the year.
Yeah, it's the second time Ben O'Connor's come out. He obviously said that after the Galway game as well, where Cork came out on top over in Salt Hill. He does have a point with it. Is that...
Yeah, and I suppose it depends. It depends.
The game is gone.
It depends on the position you play as well. As a back, you're always ready for the rough and tumble.
We'll have to get the forwards angle now.
So I'm conscious I'm surrounded
by
forwards. But I get his point. we've probably seen slight elements of people falling to the ground, players falling to the ground, and it's probably not a good look for the GA. So I understand completely that point.
Walter, do you agree?
Yeah, you don't want to see diving coming into our game, and in order to get somebody to get a black card, you have to hit the ground. So you can see why players, when they get the contact, they might hit the ground because they're more likely to get a black card. Whereas if you get tackled, you might win it free. But if you do not hit the ground, the opponent isn't getting a black card. And that just seemed to me that Cork and Tip, neither of them wanted to back down from each other in that scuffle before half time. So that's probably why it went on for so long. But like, I don't think we don't want to see that come into our game. Like, people looking for red cards, yellow cards, that's not part of our game.
Eoin, as the inside forward, are you in agreement with Ben O'Connor? Things have gone a little bit too far?
Yeah, a small bit too far from the official side, I suppose. Look, it was disappointing to see that, obviously, the other night, because it was a game that we were all looking forward to, but it did go on a bit too long. But I think the lads have answered it there. 4 teams are creating their own rivalry that's probably going to continue for the next couple of seasons. They didn't want to back down. They don't want to be seen to be backing down. But look, a couple of yellow cards shown there. Referee just pulls in maybe the 2 captains, just say, look, next dirty stroke, there'll be a red card shown here. And I think that would have stamped that out. But look, Ben is a hurling man, but club and county, he's been at the top of his game when he was a player. He's last couple of seasons as a coach, manager with clubs and with Cork under-20s, that he's proven to be a winner. And do you know what? I think when he speaks, some officials should stand up and listen, because we want the game of hurling to be what it was known for, a good physical game. I don't think there's any dirty strokes in the game. Guys often say to me, who's the dirtiest player you ever marked? And my answer to that was, you'd have to stop and think, but there were so many cameras around, no player is going to go out to pull a dirty stroke. So I actually think Ben has a good fair point. And, red cards, black cards, I suppose the thing that was probably missed the other night on the TV maybe was the tapping of the helmet and the tipping of the helmet. Like, they're travelling so fast. It's probably some players are using it to get an opponent sent off, get an opponent a yellow card, win a free. Maybe a referee needs to deal with that in a different way, that if he does think a guy is diving, that he shows him the yellow card. And maybe that might stamp that out going forward. But, we want to see good, hard physical hurling, and we didn't see that probably in Páirc Uí Chaoimh the other night after that Melee.
Yeah, and on and on, Ben O'Connor did speak afterwards about he wants his team and he's proud of his team playing on the edge. Is there any danger that might come back to haunt Cork later on in the year? They do look like they're the strongest team again this year. They've started the season really, really well. But is that overly physical, and the fact that it's a major talking point from the weekend, is that something they just need to be very careful of come championship time?
I don't think so. I'd say what he's probably trying to say to people is that he wants his team playing on the edge with the ball. That they're breaking tackles and breaking the line and going at defences and that. And, that's probably a side of it too. You do want to play on the edge when you have the ball. And, I suppose when you don't have the ball, then you want your compact defence. And I suppose Rob Downey sat back in that 6th pocket the other night, shoring up, we'll say, Tipperary getting any goal threat. There was no goal threats from nearly both teams the other night. So I think, from a hurling point of view, guys that know the hurling inside out will probably know what he's trying to say. And I think we all, as I said, we just want this game to be let flow. The referees are under pressure with assessors. That's one thing. But I'd love for an assessor to come out and to say to a referee, you refereed that brilliant. You took your own initiative there. You gave 3 yellow cards to each side, Tipperary and Cork. You stamped out any melee that was going to happen later on, or any dirty stroke that was going on. And compliment, because sometimes we see in these games and championship games, when a referee has a good game, no one mentions it afterwards, bar the real hurling men. So, it's something you don't want it to carry on throughout the league and into the championship. You want to stamp it out now early in the league, and I'm sure maybe the Croke Park will have a meeting with maybe referees, and hopefully we won't see it for the rest of the league, and just let this game flow.
Fingers crossed. Well, look, outside of the melee, let's talk about some of the positives from the game, obviously. And Walter, you were massively impressed again with Darragh Fitzgibbon. He's been outstanding for Cork. His position a little bit different this year. Would you rather see him further up the pitch?
Oh, definitely, yeah. He's playing wing forward now, and he's incredible. He has so much pace and power, and he's left or right, he's just putting the ball over from the sidelines. He's someone who has really, really impressed me, and he's on Seamus Kennedy there as well. I know from playing with Kilkenny, you don't want to mark Seamus Kennedy. He's an extremely tight marker. He's fast, he's physical as well. But you can just see the pace of him here as he goes onto this ball, and Kenny's just trying to keep him at bay so he doesn't get in on goal. But like he's captain of Cork this year, and I think that was a great appointment from Ben O'Connor, and like I can only see him getting better and better.
He nearly epitomises that athleticism that this Cork team, like really Ben O'Connor as a player himself, that just athleticism, speed, power, it's so hard to defend against.
But also, I think that the one thing that has definitely developed over the last couple of years is his ability to run a goal. Do you know, I think that's something in his armour that has probably changed in the last kind of 12 to 18 months, whereas before he was happy enough to try and tap the ball over the bar for maybe 40, 50 yards. But in the last kind of season and going into this season, the minute he sees green grass in front of him, he's running straight into it and trying to get an opportunity, which again shows his ambition to drive Cork on as a captain, but also probably changes a bit of the back's thinking on him. If you know a forward is going to stand off and try and shoot from outside, you're kind of happy enough. But when a forward changes up their game a lot and can vary it, it then becomes a lot more troublesome as a back.
And from the tip side, is Liam Cahill overly concerned with that? Look, the 2 wins from 2 heading into the game, not their best performance at Saturday night, but are there positives to take? Will he be overly concerned?
No, I don't think he'll be overly concerned. He likes to win all his games. That'll be the disappointing thing. Now, look, he did say it in one of his post-match interviews, 4 points from possible 6. So, you know, he'll be looking at trying to get back to winning ways in the next game. But I thought Tipperary, again, they showed a great fighting spirit. They've showed that under his management in all games. So, you know, a couple of guys got more game time. Carl O'Reilly, cornerback. You know, so, like, he's able to try out a couple of different things, we'll say. And the one thing with the Tipperary defence, they didn't concede any goals, so he'll be very happy with that. You know, and there's the versatility. Brian O'Meara was full back again. Craig Morgan sat in at 6. So there's a versatility, I suppose, that he has with these players. And look, there's a couple of key players to come back to. And I suppose the thing with Páirc Uí Chaoimh, like, it hasn't been a happy hunting ground for Tipperary maybe over the last 12 months, you know, between the league final, championship last year, the league game the other night. The surface does play different, and it really, really suits that Cork team with their pace and how the openness of the play. And I think, you know, it probably is a disadvantage to other teams coming down to Páirc Uí Chaoimh this time of the year. So all that taken into consideration, I don't think he'll be too disappointed. Small bit of shadow boxing the other night from both teams. They're obviously eyeing up that championship game in May, but no, I think Liam will want to get back to winning ways now the next game. And look, again, another hard physical game probably gone into the tank for a lot of those guys, and that's what they're building towards. 2 squads, and both teams look like they have 2 very, very strong squads facing into the championship, and that's kind of what you want to get out of the league.
Most certainly. Noel, you had mentioned, as Eoin was kind of saying there, these teams know each other so well, and look, they're going to meet again later on in the summer. Was there a bit of a sense of Saturday night that they both essentially mirrored each other with their setups, and that led to, as Eoin mentioned, maybe a bit of a stalemate in what was built up and anticipated it was going to be a great game, but they set up very, very similar and led to that puck-out issue that you wanted to highlight?
Yeah, I do think that it was that element of shadow boxing. And I do think that they're trying to hold stuff in reserve for the summer, and rightly so. Like, we were talking off air before we got on here about, like, who comes out of Munster, and even that in itself is a difficult one to answer.
A few different answers coming there.
So like it's and it is, like, the bottom line with all this stuff is getting out of Munster and then progressing for a long summer. But what I've noticed, particularly on the match on Saturday night, was the amount of bodies that were actually in the middle of the field. It was
congested, right?
It was so congested. And we can see here, like, we have a stack of players that are stuck here in the middle. There's 14 players that were in a very short...
Football match.
Yeah, it's... don't say that to hurling folk. We have another one here with 18 people within a very short space. And as we can see, it's just bodies everywhere. So it's very, very difficult to try and have any shape or consistency. And the consequence of this is you have a lot of bodies in behind. So the minute that Cork turned over the ball in this particular play, we can see here, this is the half back line running back to try and support and shore up the midfield. And what they wanted was, they nearly wanted it to be that kind of middle third where a lot of the play happens. So we can see there was a box that was highlighted from the puck out. And what that was, it was Connolly going to wing forward. It allowed Barrett go to nearly midfield or beyond. And we can see here, you have Rob Downey, you have Coleman, who's the closest to Willie Connors, and you have Barrett getting back. Now, Barrett, bear in mind, is supposed to be on the other side of the pitch. But because there's so many bodies, his main ambition is to get back to field, to be the first person on the break, which he is now. He doesn't win the ball, but the ball is broken to Coleman, and it gives him the option to run up the field into the space that Barrett was supposed to be and get off a wonderful score. So both teams played a lot of the bodies in the middle, shadow boxed one another,
Yeah.
and it was nearly like that old school kind of mentality of you score 220, we'll score 330 kind of approach.
Right, well, listen, I suppose on the Tipperary side, Walt, you just wanted to touch on what a positive weapon Eoin Connolly has become for them. And look, the result didn't go Liam Call's way, as Eoin said he wouldn't be overly concerned, but that was a standout performance from him. What a weapon.
Yeah, he only came on in the second half as well, and he put 4 frees over the bar. And if you look back at Limerick and their success that they had over the years, like Diarmaid Burns was just putting points over from everywhere. And like Eoin Connolly is an incredible strike on the ball as well. And like I know from playing wing forward, like if you're marking the likes of an Eoin Connolly or Diarmaid Burns, like you could come off that field and he'd be after scoring more than you, and not just from frees, it's from play as well.
It's a dark day. It's
yeah,
dark
it is.
day.
Oh, it's happened to me many times, but too many times. But like if you're kind of watching him more, and we look at even Coleman and Owen Downey as well, they're putting points over from the sideline. But that is some weapon to have, and like that could be the difference between getting out a Munster this year or winning a Munster final, or who knows, an All-Ireland final. And he got an All-Star last year. He's only 25. And he's able to mark the player as well. He's able to go forward. So he seems to have it all, and good to see him growing and growing more in confidence as the year goes on.
I think you have to be careful with this one, Paddy, right? Because a lot of teams, before they funnel back the pitch, you'll often see forwards doing their lazy tackles, as you know.
Never.
But like what it offers then is it offers the team that are out of possession. If you do a quick foul, it allows you then to get back to field. Whereas teams now are going to be very mindful of the fact that if you do, not to only use the word professional foul, but if you foul someone in the half-back line, I know, very cynical. I sound like the football.
I sound like
the footballers here now. But if you do a cynical foul anywhere from your own 45 up, Connolly is the stand-up there, and it's a pint. So teams are going to be more and more aware of that as the summer progresses.
Yeah. Well, look, the other big game yesterday, the marquee game, was Kilkenny versus Limerick in the Gaelic round. So John Kiley, he came out swinging after Limerick's defeat last week down at Walsh Park to Waterford. He demanded a response from his team, Noel, and it's fair to say he got it. A dominant display.
Yeah, it was. Like, it was funny because after like 10 minutes, they were 5 points up to no score.
Faster.
And you thought, like, you know, gee, this could be a hard day for Kilkenny, but Kilkenny do what Kilkenny do. Like, they stick in there and they win a couple of frees, they get a goal opportunity, a half opportunity, and they score it. But definitely something that Limerick will be a lot more positive about coming out against a strong Kilkenny team, as in there's probably not going to be a lot more players added to that Kilkenny team over the next couple of weeks from a starting point of view. And I think that they kind of done what they said they wanted to do at this time of the year, to get over the line and to do it reasonably convincingly towards the end.
Yeah, Walter, what stood out for you with Limerick yesterday?
Yeah, I think they'd be delighted with that performance. Obviously, they were really disappointed from the previous week when Waterford beat them as well. So I knew it was going to be a big challenge for Kilkenny to go down to the Gaelic grounds and get a result there. But yeah, Limerick, they've some great, incredible young hurlers as well. Like, and if even Shane O'Brien didn't play, but like Aidan O'Connor, you've Carlow, O'Neill, Adam English, these lads, they're the best young players in the country, really. So they have a lot to build on. And if anyone's thinking Limerick are going away, they have another thing coming, I'd say, come championship.
Owen, on your side, as one of the great corner forwards, we've seen a bit of magic from Aaron Gillane again yesterday. Probably lit up the game, one of the best moments of skill we've seen. You'd have been proud of that one yourself?
Yeah, no, it was really good because he had an option of passing it to a man inside, but he hung it, like, you know. And look, even one of the first breaking balls that came in, he was onto it, got his touch, and he just finished a great point. But look, the thing with there, I think the pass into Adam English was the key thing. Like, it's a 2v1 inside, which Kilkenny defenders would be disappointed for. But you know, the power and pace he got behind that, I suppose. Look, if you have time to plant your feet in that situation, you're going to get the power and pace on that shot, and that's where Kilkenny will probably be disappointed from a defender's point of view. But look, Aaron Gillane, I heard John Kiley saying that he had a nasty finger injury towards the tail end of the championship last year, that those things can affect the player. But look, Limerick will need him firing during the year. They scored 126 yesterday. Diarmaid Burns missed the penalty. You could see how disappointed he was after missing the penalty. That's 226 they should have put on the board. That's 32 points, like, and they are a 30-point team, and you know Limerick are on song when they're hitting those kind of scores. The week before against Waterford, I think they only finished with 20 points, so that's where they'd be really, really disappointed the week before. But they turned that around.
Were you surprised not to see Gillane on the frees yesterday? As a free taker yourself, is that, you know, maybe John Kiley's giving a go to someone else, was it?
I probably was, if I'm being honest with you. Aidan O'Connor probably has been very good throughout the Munster Co-op League. He's been consistent on him. So sometimes a manager might like just to say to a guy, look, you don't have the God-given right just to walk in here and do what you want. So maybe it might be a small little message to Aaron Gillane behind the scenes and that. But look, it'll be an interesting one as it goes on. I suppose Waterford, Ruben Halloran scoring 1-12 yesterday might have the same conundrum. But look, it's not a bad conundrum to have, because you need one, if not two, top class free takers in your locker going down the road in the championship and that. And look, we saw that when Jason Ford came off yesterday, or was sent off the weekend. Jake Morris missed a handy free after half time and that. So look, Aaron Gillane's a top class forward, and you knew Limerick wanted to step up when they had nearly 7 or 11 or 12 of their championship team out. So they're back firmly on track, and I think they'll be a force in this league and championship.
Wally, on your side, the bright spark, or maybe a few bright sparks for Kilkenny, yes, it was Eoin Cody. He's their own. A lot is going to be hanging on him if Kilkenny are going to get to where they want to get to this season.
Yeah, definitely. Eoin Cody's an incredible player, and he's after building on his game even more in the last couple of years as well. He's now Kilkenny's main forward. You see, out centre forward, he has that bit more freedom, and he's getting on the ball, whereas when he's playing inside, Noel will know there, the cornerback has just stuck to him. His job is to stop Eoin Cody, but he's getting a bit more freedom out there. William O'Donoghue stepped off him, as all centre-backs do, because they're trying to support their full-back line and also hit a bit of ball themselves. So I just think he's really thriving out there, and if you look at the power he has, he's even got more explosive since I was playing with him as well, and his pace, and he's central to everything good that Kilkenny are doing at the minute, and he's so important to that team as well.
Yeah, so positive for Limerick yesterday. They're up and running well and truly now. Now, if we move on to one of the other big games yesterday, your boys, the Dacia, two wins in a row. They're well and truly settled into the season now, but fair to say Peter Queally wasn't overly impressed with the result. Or maybe not the result, the performance against Offaly yesterday.
Yeah, it was
clunky.
Clunky is probably a nice description, actually, Paddy. But like they didn't look like the team that they were the previous week, and that can be often a challenge when you come from like a game. Say, so the first obviously week they were really, really poor in Cork, and then obviously they built themselves up for the week run into the Limerick game at home, and then it's very difficult psychologically and also physically to get yourself up then to play Offaly the following week at home, when the expectation is you're going to win anyway. And that's no disrespect to Offaly, by the way, it's just the reality of it. But it wasn't good, as in, like, now I know Peter, there was several personnel changes. The likes of Mark Fitz wasn't playing. I know he was brought in at half time, tried several different like personnel positions. They brought a few fellas from, we'll say, midfield back to wing back, and done several different things, but like it didn't necessarily work, and I think that's probably the most disappointing thing for Peter. He probably tried things on yesterday, on Sunday, that possibly might have worked in his own kind of head and how he was going to structure things, because obviously the Munster Championship is going to be really competitive, so he was probably testing the waters to see.
That's what these games are for,
absolutely.
really, isn't it?
So I'd say he was slightly disappointed with some of the underperformance of players.
Okay.
Noel, do you think he was happy to get the win in the end? Because if you look at it, Duignan had 2 goal scoring opportunities that blazed over Adam Screeney as well. So when you're looking back at that game, like, they'll be happy to get the win as well, because that's what this league is about. It's about winning games as well. Obviously, blooding a few players, but like Waterford probably in a good place. The Ballygurran lads coming back as well.
Exactly.
Yeah, but it's hard. It's so hard to know, and I'll tell you why. Because with the league, nobody really knows like what managers are doing, in the sense that they all have different agendas. They have fellas playing Fitzgibbon finals next week or this week. They're trying to manage players, manage the Ballygunner fellas coming back in. They're trying to target games, particularly at home, to try and maybe retain the 1A status. So managers are probably wrestling with several different kind of strategies on what they're trying to do. But the bottom line with this is the performance that Waterford put in yesterday, I'd say, was underwhelming from Peter and his backroom team.
Well, look, that's Division 1A well and truly covered. We're on to Division 1B as well. There was a full round of games. Wexford continued their fine start to the year, despite you picking Carlow. You thought Carlow beat them in the wild card last week.
They weren't far away.
But look, I suppose the big story for Wexford and their supporters, Lee Chin was back and a positive victory. They're 3 from 3. Clare had far too much, as expected, for Down. But one of the standout victories over the weekend in St Conleth's Park, Kildare picked up their first win over Davy Fitz's Antrim. Probably one of the biggest surprises from the weekend, lads.
Yeah, Kilkenny man over, and Brian Dowling doing some great work there as well.
He's to get Kilkenny accolade.
Let them have their moment. He was over St. Kieran's, wasn't he, as well? So they won the colleges as well on the Saturday and went up on the Sunday.
Yeah, no, he's a great manager. He's doing some great work there as well. He was with the Kilkenny Camogies and had success with them as well. They won in All Ireland. So, yeah, no, that wasn't that much of a surprise either. Kildare, there's some great work going on there. You see it with Naas as well. They're being really competitive at club level, and there's some incredible players. Like that Jack Sheridan, he's as good a player I think is in the country. He's just so elusive, left-handed, and so fast as well.
But to the score, like their score line in itself was very, very impressive.
Big numbers, isn't it?
Like big numbers, like if you're scoring that in any game. But like what impressed me most was like there was probably 15, 20 minutes left, and Kildare were still bossing the game. This is an unbelievable goal here by Curtin. Like top corner, I think Curtin finished with 2-2 or something like that overall. But like it was their play, like their hurling is incredible. Like if you saw like a 1A team doing this, you'd be very, very impressed with their ability. But we're talking about a team here that won Joe McDonagh last year and are now in the Leinster Championship. And if they continue to progress like they have over the last 2 seasons under Brian, they could take a scalp or 2 along the way in the Leinster Championship.
And even with Curtin there as well, he scored 2 goals, but he set up the other one. He is a great hand as well, and that's the first time I've seen him play as well. Yeah. He looks really talented as well. So like Kildare, they're definitely
watch this space.
Yeah,
definitely.
Exactly. Yeah.
Owen, on the other side of the fence, your old buddy Davy Fitz, as brilliant a result as it was for Kildare, disappointing for Antrim. Is Davy the man to turn it around for the rest of the season for Antrim?
Yeah, do you know, the first night against Wexford down in Wexford Park, now that result looks like a result that might actually come back to haunt them, because they had that game won, you could say, and then a small bit of dissent or whatever went on was brought in, and we all know what happened then with Mark Fanning sneaking in the back of the net. But look, definitely they're under pressure now, and they'll be looking for a couple of home games. You know, they have down, I think, in Ballycran, and that's a local derby up there, so that's going to be sticky. So probably it's Dublin, then maybe in Carlow they have. So they're definitely up against it, because I think Brian Dowling said in his interview last night that was the game that both managers were kind of looking at to say, right, this is where we could potentially pick up 2 points. You know, they probably fought back. They were 3-18 to 13 points down. So sometimes as a manager you look for some positivity after a game like that. That's probably something he'll look at and say, right, we fought back, but they just don't seem to be scoring freely. You know, and they're having a lot of maybe shots from far out that are dropping wide or dropping short and that. So, you know, they need to probably push on and maybe start getting shots from 45, 50 yards in. So maybe he might need to set up a small bit different. And, you know, I don't know, is he going to get 1 or 2 players back? But definitely they're up against it now going forward. But look, if they can get 1 or 2 results at home, they've played one home game against Clare, which they were always going to be under pressure. So look, they're up against it, and they'll need a bit of luck on their side. So at the moment, it's probably not looking good for them.
Yeah. Noel, you would have won an All-Star under Dave. You would know him very well. We see the photo of him there. What's he like in the dressing room in a situation like this? Nearly backs to the wall.
Like that photo. No, he is.
That's the answer.
Look, he does. Look, he's incredibly passionate, and I suppose I was at a couple of their matches. Last year I was up their match against Galway up in Salt Hill, and they were actually doing really well to the point of where they had a sending off. Davy last year actually played with 2 centre forwards, which I actually looked at, and it was actually really smart, which I expect from Davy, but he allows 2 centre forwards and they kind of float around, and it's really difficult because the centre back doesn't know whether to mark 1 or to mark 2, and to then try to manage that situation. But like, I think that Davy, after that match and after they got relegated up in Offaly against Offaly, they had a sending off that day as well actually, I'd say his whole ambition and target was to get back into Lee McCarthy. So to win Joe McDonagh, to get back up. Does he really care about the league? I'd question it.
Okay.
He doesn't want to get bet, and that's just the nature of Davy. But I do think his priority is to win Joe McDonagh, to get him back up, and I think that'll be kind of a happy day for Davy.
If we move on, I suppose, to Wexford, the other big story from Division 1B. Walter, on your side, we won't say what our predictions for the Leinster Championship are outside, off camera, but there's been a lot of talk that Wexford, it could be a tough year for Keith Rossiter and his boys, but they're 3 from 3, so it's everything going according to plan so far, or are the results maybe masking the performances?
Yeah, it seems that way, that the results are there, 3 from 3, you can't argue with that, but it's just the manner of some of the victories. You could argue they were lucky against Antrim as well, and same with Down, but look, they got over the line. Lee Chin is pivotal to them as well. Him coming on there the other day, or yesterday as well, just he changed the game, got 2 points, and he is their leader. He's one of the best players in the country for the last 10, 15 years. Like he's so important, and when he plays, the rest of the team kind of tick then as well. So if they can keep Lee Chin fit, they're going to be competitive.
Oh, have you seen anything different from them this season?
To be honest, I would say I was probably disappointed in many ways, because I just felt that the Wexford DNA that I would have grown up like enjoying watching, loving watching when I was young, I thought had changed slightly over the last couple of years. I thought that maybe last year and the year before it was kind of like the possession-based game, which was ball to hand. And even like I was up at the Dublin v Wexford game that Dublin won last year up in Parnell Park. I felt when I watched the warm-up, they were doing like passing the ball around rather than taking the tackle. Whereas when I played against Wexford, you knew that you were after playing a match, because you were getting hit, you were taking hits all the time, but fair. Now, there was an element of the DNA slightly changing at this game, but there was just, they struggled half forward, full forward when the ball was coming from their own 45.
You did a piece on it, yeah.
Yeah, they were really struggling, I thought, when the ball was coming in from distance. I thought that they struggled. So the idea was right, but they're missing, as Wally said, they're missing someone to go up and catch a ball. The O'Connors are really good at it. Conor MacDonald was really good at it. Lee is incredibly good at it. But when they're shooting from inside their own 45, they genuinely struggle to win their own primary possession, which is worrying for Wexford, because that was always their bread and butter, to have big physical men that can go up and grab a ball and take someone on and nearly hold possession. And we saw this over and over and over again, where they went from to distance, but the ball was broken down and the ball was flicked away, or the people around the ball were the Carlow lads, they picked up the ball and got scoring opportunities, which was slightly worrying, I'd say, at home for Keith Rossiter. But it's definitely a development for him. Whereas in the second half, when things did develop and Wexford could turn over ball, so if Carlow were running on and they got the ball turned over, that's when Wexford actually were really good. As in, like, there was several times when Carlow were running numbers, Wexford ran with the runners, dispossessed, and all of a sudden then they're passing the ball between 2 or 3 players. And then they have open road in front to where they can actually play the ball in. I'm
disappointed with Carlow's shape in terms of trying to counteract that from Wexford's side. They didn't help themselves.
Yeah, they were really good in the first half. They were so well structured in the first half, where they were nearly like what we would assume Limerick to be like, where they hold their half-back line. But the problem was they kind of got sucked at times, which didn't help. So we can see it here. Kevin MacDonald wins the ball, gives it across to John Noel, and John tries to go through 3 or 4 bodies. But when he passes the ball off and it gets turned over, it's here where Carlow struggle. We saw Tipperary when they got turned over. We saw a body of 4 running back the field to try and help out. But in this instance, and this is the difference between good teams, we can see that there's so many bodies back. What's there, 17 bodies back there within the 45. You can see now when the ball is turned over, Carlow just can't get back enough. And this here we can see is their half-back line jogging back. Now, Carlow still have a 3v2 in here. Because the ball is delivered closer, it means that it's easier for them to pick out their forward and get a strike off. So it's a small thing of getting the ball closer to their own goal and then playing the ball around. Again, we can see it here. Ball is turned over. Lee is on the ball. And look, this is what Carlow are really good at. Trying to get bodies around the ball. But when it's turned over by Lee, all of a sudden, they've open road. There's 3 or 4 options where they can actually take it on. And that epitomised the last 15 minutes. I think the last 15 minutes, I think Wexford scored 11 points, which probably put a bit of a shine on the game. I think Lee came on the 47th minute, I think. And at that stage, I think it was 115 to 116. And because he was physical enough to win the ball and bring fellas into it, it meant there was runners off the side and they could actually give nice ball into the forwards.
Impact the best players are going to have. So that, I suppose, brings us to the end of Division 1A and 1B, and we must lose Tipperary great Eoin Kelly. Eoin, thanks a million for joining us. Hopefully you're back on in a couple of weeks with a positive result for Liam Cahill's men. But thanks again, and we'll catch up with you in a few weeks' time.
Thanks, lads. Talk to you later.
See you on.
Now we'll move on to our Division 2 results from the weekend. So we had Kerry putting 5 goals past London on the way to victory in Tralee yesterday. Derry were comfortable winners against Mayo. And in the big derby, Westmeath came out on top, defeating the Royals 25 points to 119. And we have a very special guest to chat to us about that very shortly. We've got Westmeath manager Kevin O'Brien basking in the glory from that win over their neighbours yesterday. Kevin, thanks for joining us today. You must have been delighted with how that game went yesterday.
Yeah, Paddy. Obviously, local derby in Mullingar. It's very important to, first of all, get the win. So look, I was saying to the local reporters after, if you told us we'd win by 3 points and get a game time into 20 players, we would have taken it. Unique situation yesterday with the Meath manager, knowing Westmeath hurling so well. Yeah. Johnny would have been involved with development squads with myself. He would have been the under 20 manager. Johnny Grevel, he's also the current manager of Raharney, and we'd 6 Raharney lads on the panel there. So he had a huge knowledge of us, and you could see that as the game progressed. He knew who our main were. He knew certain players' weaknesses and that, and it made for a great game. And look, it's the league. It's 2 points on the board to add to the draw against Kerry.
Yeah, and in terms of the second half performance, you mentioned there, Kevin, as well. What was the most impressive thing from your side? Just that, the fact that there's nearly spies in the camp that know everything about you guys, but the resilience shown that second half.
Yeah, that's exactly it, Paddy. To grind it out, 6 points down to Kerry with 15 minutes gone, and came back and ground it out. And the same yesterday. It needed leaders, lads, to stand up and take the scores when needed. And look, you can see Killian Doyle scored 10 points. Owen Keys was very good. Eamon Kineen. The lads really battled well. Like Josh Call there, some great scores. We put together some great passages of play that maybe we didn't against Kerry. So look, it made for the victory. And look, there was a goal there, and Peter Clark got a goal, and the umpire on the white flag pointed goal, and the lad in the green flag said no, and look, they would play on. But these things happen, and look, we were delighted to get to 2 points.
You mentioned it, Kevin, with that continuous improvement, the result against Kerry to kind of get out of there with a draw, the win yesterday. Are you enjoying it so far, having taken over in the off season? It's definitely a bit of momentum behind the team so far, it seems.
Yeah, look, Paddy, any coach, their goal should be to manage their county. Like, that should be the pinnacle. For any manager, like I was lucky enough to win a couple of championships with my own club, Cloncail, and I was with Mick Fenley and Offaly and Mick Kavanagh for a couple of years. Would have learned an awful lot with the lads, like the professionalism of Michael Fenley and Offaly, and the way he had everyone prepared, and his attention to detail and everything. Like, I would have learned an awful lot from him. And then, coaches we would have had, like a Ken Hogan, Joachim Kelly, all these lads were great lads to learn from when you're a young lad. You pick something up from all these coaches along the way, and backroom teams and different things. And it's very enjoyable for me. Obviously, I know all the lads from being under 20 manager twice, 2020 and 24, and obviously from being a club manager within the county, you'd know the players available to you. Like, you'd have a unique knowledge of everyone. Maybe something that an outside manager doesn't have. Now, I know it can be an advantage to have an outside manager with experience in that, but I always think, the county's nearly better off because they're invested in it. Like, I remember chatting Mick Kavanagh. I was involved with Mick with the Ireland junior team for a couple of years, and we were awfully there. And if you won something, like, he made a valid point, who are you going to show the trophy to? You're not going to bring it to school the next morning, like the way they used to do in Kilkenny and that. And you need to be, I think, invested in the team. It has to matter to you, and it definitely matters to me. And look, it's rubbing off on the lads. It's a great bunch. Like, we've 38 training there 2-3 times a week. And of course, there's 23 lads disappointed when you name a team. Like, they all want to play for their county, which is great. And look, so far so good, Paddy.
Yeah. You see what's happening over in Kildare with a brilliant result for them and the progress they've made over the last couple of seasons. What, for the Westmeath supporters listening, Kevin, what's success for this team for 2026 and just Westmeath hurling in general?
Yeah, the big thing, Paddy, I suppose, like, we're in Division 2, a lot of people would like to see us playing the bigger teams in Division 1, like the likes of Clare and Dublin, and that bringing them to Cusack Park and Mullingar. People come out for them games. Like there was a big crowd yesterday, probably one of the bigger crowds there's been to Cusack Park for a hurling match. Look, the McDonagh is very tough. You spoke about it there already with the teams involved in the McDonagh. Like if Antrim, Laois, Carlow, ourselves down, and London after winning the Christie Ring. Like obviously, championship is where it's at. You know, you want to win your championship. Our championship is the Joe McDonagh. Promotion in the league, of course, is very important as well. So, okay, every day you go out, Paddy, you want to win. The players want to win the championship. The players want to win the league. And look, we'll put the structures in place for them to achieve that.
Well, Kevin, you're certainly on the right track, and it's been a very positive start to the season for you and the team. So, listen, all the best with the rest of the season. Thanks a million for taking time out on your Monday lunchtime, and enjoy that victory over your neighbours for the next couple of days at least. Thanks, Kevin. Thanks,
Paddy. All the best.
With that, we'll move on to Division 3 and Division 4. So Division 3 results, Armagh were beaten by Roscommon yesterday. Wicklow got a victory over Tyrone. And on the other side, we've seen Louth with a victory over Fermanagh. They're 3 for 3, those teams, the Rossies, Wicklow and Louth. So a very strong start to the season for those three. And in Division 4, we've seen Sligo with a very comfortable victory over Lancashire. Longford had too much for Monaghan. And Leitrim got a win over Warwickshire. And moving on to competition time. If you would like to win 2 tickets to an Allianz League game of your choice this coming weekend, it's back to the football this weekend, just leave a comment under this video on YouTube, on Facebook or on X. And as always, Aisling will announce the winners this Friday. So comment and hopefully go and see your county in action this weekend. And next, it's what everyone is tuned in for. Noel, you're sweating in the seat beside me. It is the buzzer blitz again. I'm going to go deaf sitting beside you, Noel, with that thing. Walter, this is your debut in this, so I'll give you a very brief overview of the rules. You have 30 seconds. I'm going to ask some. These are pretty generous questions this week. Our guests were giving out to the producers that they were too difficult.
Hold up, we weren't. Richie Hogan was giving out.
Richie Hogan, he won't come back.
He's always
questions
giving out.
Were too hard.
Yeah.
So, first man onto the buzzer, and if you get it incorrect, it passes to your rival. No, you're actually going okay in this. You're top of the leaderboard.
You sound surprised, Paddy.
I am a bit surprised. I do remember week 1. But you're top with 2 points, joint with Tipperary's own Kelly. So, Walter, you have a chance to catch up here. So, let's kick into this. 30 seconds for the buzzer blitz. First question, very easy one here. Who is the Allianz Division 1A top scorer? Walter.
Darragh Fitzgibbon.
Incorrect.
Reuben Halloran.
Correct, the Waterford man. Who scored Limerick's only goal in the win over Kilkenny?
Glenn.
Walter, you can buzz in here if you want. Who was the top scorer for Tipperary against Cork after coming on as a sub?
Eoin Connolly.
Correct. Who are currently top of the Allianz Division 2 Hurling League? Walter?
Clare.
Incorrect.
Oh, Kerry. Division 2.
3-1, Walter,
you
you're
got
under
Richie
pressure.
Hogan on us.
Who was man of the match in the Cork versus Tipperary game?
Go on,
Walter?
Darragh Fitzgibbon.
3-2, this is tight. UL are looking to defend their Fitzgibbon Cup.
Mary
I was going to say that. Who scored 2 goals for Kildare in the win over Antrim? Walter?
Mercer Curtin.
Correct. Oh, to level it up, how many Allianz Hurling Leagues has Kilkenny goalkeeper Owen Murphy won?
5.
Wow, that is
I just said 5 because you were 5.
You knew I had 5.
Yeah, I guess
That is
5.
correct.
Is it
And
5?
we actually stuck to the rules this week. What's that, 5-3? Not bad. No, what a performance.
I
Well
only guessed
done.
5 because you had 5, sorry.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I told you that
I know you
before.
guessed that beforehand as well. Yes. No, well done.
I know.
And you didn't even manage to break the buzzer. Walter, not bad though. 3, you've been definitely better than some of our previous guests. Like I said, Richie Hogan will not be coming back on for this game, or Pádraig O'Hara on the football side. But that is all we've got time for today. A brilliant weekend of hurling action. Thanks to Noel, as always, and to Walter on your debut. Thanks for joining us. Thanks to Eoin for joining us on the line as well. And thanks to all of you for tuning in on this dreary February Monday lunchtime. Aisling is back on Friday to preview the weekend's games, and we'll be back here next Monday to look back at all the Allianz League action. Thank you and have a great week.